Welcome back, everybody. Joining us now is the national spokesman for the Republican National Committee, Dennard. Paris, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. All right, we got midterms coming up in November. A lot of the Republican base have very valid concerns about election fraud. What is the RNC doing? And I'm not talking generalities and platitudes. What specifically is the RNC doing to make sure that election fraud does not occur in November?
Well, it's a very good question. Under the leadership of Ronna McDaniel, our chairwoman, she has made sure that the RNC is one of the most litigious RNCs in history. And what I mean by that is specifically when you look at states like New York and what they're trying to do in New York City to try to allow non-citizens to vote. We interceded in a lawsuit there. We saw that happening in other cities across the country, and we will continue to intercede. We believe that election integrity is one of the most significant things that we can do as a party to make sure not only just to raise awareness, but to use our legal team to go after and to be very aggressive on these issues. Look, we have to make sure that American people feel that their elections are safe and secure and that it's easier to vote and harder to cheat. And so we are very aggressive in our lawsuits. And we think this is a very, very important issue. That's why we support things that happen in Texas, the laws that were changed in Texas, and the laws that were changed in Georgia, because these are common sense approaches to make sure that people know that their vote counts, that it will be counted in a safe and secure manner, because we know Democrats in the last election, under the guise of COVID-19, changed in emergency sessions a lot of these laws, and now they're trying to codify them. And so we're working with state and local officials and municipalities as well to make sure that this doesn't happen across the country.
Yeah, everyone is watching with a very close eye on that. Paris, I want to talk a little bit about Joe Biden. Harry Truman gave us the famous line, "The buck stops here." Joe Biden, it doesn't ever seem to stop with him. He blames oil prices on everything except his own policies. Your response to that? And secondly, who are the people being left behind in this high inflation, high gas price economy?
Well, the adage, "the buck stops here," does not apply to Joe Biden in his mind, because it doesn't with him. He seems to cast blame on everyone except for himself, because we all know, every American knows that has been living under the Biden administration since he was elected, that times are hard. There's so many crises that are happening. And he tends to blame Putin. He wants to blame the auto industry. He wants to blame big corporations. He wants to blame the American people. He doesn't want to accept responsibilities and accept the fact that his policies are causing these domestic crises and these international crises that we see before our eyes. And to your second point, when you look at the impact of the high inflation, rising gas prices, all of these things are having a disproportionate impact on minorities and especially women. March is Women's History Month, and I think that we owe it to women to highlight the things that are not happening under this administration, which is the fact that they are not standing for things like school choice and believing parents should have a right to have more say in their children's education. And when you look at the mandates that were put in place, it kept a lot of women out of the workforce because they had to stay home with their children, especially single mothers. And so the Biden administration has had a very adversarial relationship, a negative relationship on the impact on women because of their bad policies, whether it's economic policies and another policy that is really bad, defunding of the police. Women want to have safe communities in their home, for their families, for their communities. And they don't see that in many Democrat-controlled cities across this country. And so in many ways, Joe Biden has let women down.
Paris, for centuries, we are used to politicians making promises on the campaign trail and then not keeping them when they go into office. And I think that was actually one of the most shocking aspects of Donald Trump. It wasn't his personality. It was the fact that he actually kept promises. There's one promise that Joe Biden has kept, and that is, his prognostication that gas prices were going to spike. I would imagine that the RNC is capitalizing on that messaging for sure.
Well, it's absolutely true. What we know about Joe Biden is that you should believe him when he says something. So when he said on the campaign trail he was going to work to eliminate fossil fuels, you should have believed him. The message that you put out there from our rapid response director, Tommy Fitchett, It's absolutely correct. Joe Biden said he was going to do these things. He said he was going to not be a friend to fracking. And when he got into office, he closed down Keystone Pipeline and lifted sanctions to allow Russia to have their own pipeline. And so Joe Biden is, in some instances, a man of his word when it comes to destroying the American energy sector and not being a friend to American businesses. He said he was going to do it. And I think if they get their plan through with the Green New Deal and being more concerned about climate change than they are about the American citizens and American businesses, they will radically change this country for the worse. And it's not a good thing, especially for those industries like our energy sector who really need to be supported. We were energy independent under President Trump. Under Joe Biden, in less than a year, that has been totally reversed. Instead of talking to governors in Pennsylvania and Texas, he's trying to make deals with Iran and Venezuela. It's wrong.
Yeah, it's stunning. It really is.
Yeah.
Paris, we only got about 20 seconds left. What is the question you want voters to ask themselves when they step into that booth in November?
One simple question. Is my life better off right now than it was a year ago? And whether it's on the economy, on national security, on a whole host of issues that are important to every American, by every objective measure, Biden's been a failure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you ask anybody, you look at the polling, and it's not just Republicans who feel like their life is worse off. Independents, Democrats as well. The numbers are stunning. Paris Dennard with the RNC, we appreciate you so much. We'll have you back on, especially leading up to those midterms.